All right, here, this is Luciana Police. Welcome, Ning Wang, to this interview. I'm so pleased that you're here. So please introduce yourself and tell us more about your company.
Okay. My name is Ning Wang. I'm CEO of Offensive Security. Offensive Security is a cybersecurity training and certifications company. We are the maker of Kali Linux, as well as the pretty well-known OSCP certifications. And we train people to develop a try harder mindset, which we believe are necessary to succeed in becoming a good qualified cybersecurity professional. And that's what we do. And we have over 200 people in 28 countries.
Oh,
And
wow.
we are completely distributed in many corners of the world. And during this pandemic, our model has worked out very well. So.
Well, wonderful. That's exactly why you're here in this interview today, because you are an expert in working with distributed teams. So what I'd like to know is what are the best practices that you had, if there were any changes from what you were doing before the pandemic and now, and especially as a leader, what can you recommend to leaders, right? What are the most important things? Because whenever you're working with people face to face, you micromanage them, you have the opportunity to to see what they're doing. But when you're fully online, fully distributed, that's not possible. So how can you measure performance? How can you evaluate people? So please tell us more about
Yeah,
that, how about
yeah.
your experience.
I think the first thing to remember is when people work from home, okay, work and life are completely intertwined. You can't easily separate out the two. So as leaders, as managers, we not only need to be aware, we need to actually adjust what we think, how we do. And so, that's one thing, that's the first thing that the leader need to be aware. So it shows up in, for example, you do one-on-ones and the kid may pop in to say hi, or the pet might be there. And then you cannot interpret that as the employee somehow not treating work seriously. And instead, you should welcome that, encourage that, because life and work are very intertwined when you work from home. So that's number one. And number two, and what's really challenging, like you mentioned, is that when you're in those office situations, you see people from their body language, their facial expressions, you kind of know what kind of day they're having. But when you are working from home and in different time zones, like in our situation, it is extremely difficult. I think everybody and every leader knows the most important thing in the company is about its people. And it's even more so during the pandemic. But what does that mean? So, for example, for me as CEO, I think the most important part of my job is to know the vibe of our people, the vibe in the company. When you're in the office, you can just pace the floor and you get a feel of the vibe, the energy,
Right. You
But
go
when you're
around and you see it, right?
okay, and how do you do that when you're not? So here are the few things that I do, and it's working really well. Number one, I have a lot of one-on-ones. It's not just the people who report to me directly. Those are actually the easier ones because you work with them so much and you know. It is really important to have one-on-ones with people at the front line, whether they are in the engineering department, project management, customer service, or your IT department, it doesn't really matter. It's really important to have your pulse on the vibe of the people from the front line. So for example, today I did many calls and my goal is trying to have it maybe just 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. And obviously I cannot talk to everybody every month. But my goal, with our company this size, my goal is to talk to everyone once or twice a year. And then you'll be amazed when you talk to them how much you walk away. I have no agenda when I talk to them. And it's always, I start with, are you happy? Are you stressed? Have you taken time off? What's the plan for the holiday? How are the kids? Are you making time for your hobby? These things, through these things, and you try to get them to tell you really how they feel. And what's really amazing is most of the time, employees tell me they're doing fine. But there are times people will say, I'm doing okay.
I was going to ask you, do you find sometimes that they are not very open or they seem too quiet and you can perceive there's something out there and
That's right.
something going
That's right.
on? And
That's right. I mean, so when I do these one-on-ones, I try very hard to convince the other party to be on video with me. Okay. So
it's
like
very
we do,
important.
right?
Yeah.
Video tells you so much because you can see their facial expression. So most of the time I do these on video. I am always on video. On the other side, sometimes, they are not as comfortable, but I would say 99% of the time, I'm on video with the people I talk to. And through that, and we chit chat, right? We chit chat about life, not about work, about
Wow,
life.
interesting.
Okay. And when you do that, you get a feel for how they are. And that's how I keep track or get a feel for the vibe of the company. Somebody could be in South Africa or in Algeria or in Ghana, Africa. This is where we have our employees. We're in Mexico, we're in the Philippines. It doesn't matter. When I talk to them, I really get a feel of the vibe through them, as well as some of the employees that this pandemic made it really hard for them and they are struggling, and they will share. They will say, it's been really hard. The lockdown, I haven't been able to go out and I have been just inside. And, work is almost a savior because it's the only way I have any social interaction. And for those people, we pay extra attention to be supportive. But I wouldn't know if I don't talk to people. So that's
Right.
number two, is to
So
really talk to people, and
it is
especially
difficult
those at frontline.
it is difficult to empathize with everyone, right? Because
That's
as
right.
a leader, maybe you are a mother and you talk to
Right.
someone that has kids and you understand, but maybe you talk to someone that is single, or maybe the other way around, you don't have kids and then you see the kid around. And in the
That's right.
past, well, you would just get mad about the employee because they are not professional. But now, as you said,
That's
that's
right.
not the case, right?
Yes. So I will tell you during these one-on-ones I have, okay, I have had employees where we talk about the dog they have, and then sometimes the employee has their cat that literally at their lap. And then we were doing the one-on-one, the cat is there with us. Sometimes the kids come in and they literally pop in and say, hi, who are you talking to, mom or dad? And I try to learn their names and we say hi. Right. And some of them I talk regularly. They know my name. They say, hi, Miss Ning. I mean, it's great. And I really welcome that. And I want them, they say, oh, go away. Mommy is doing a call. I said, it's okay. We can do it together. And I think as a leader, when you do that, that you really are acting where life and work are intertwined, and it's really okay. And then you go a step further. So sometimes you schedule the call. And for example, my schedule is crazy. I schedule the call, but life happens with everyone. Something happens last minute and they're not able to do the call. And then they gave me 5 minutes notice. Sometimes they're 10 minutes late and they say, sorry, this thing happened at home and we have to reschedule. And it's okay. It really is okay. And that's what it means, is that you do the one-on-one, you in a way practice that life and work are intertwined. And that's how people will say, oh, maybe it's really okay, right? And and then there are other things, which is that, when you're distributed, communication is much, much harder.
Mhm.
And when we are in 28 different countries, there's so many different time zones, like 14, 15 different time zones. The time zones are actually even harder. So that means that you cannot rely on synchronous communications. You have to assume a lot of the things can be communicated asynchronously. So you use tools but you rely on written documentation, written communication, so people can pick it up when they wake up, when it's their time, and so that they know what to do, what has happened. So whatever tool you use, there's many different kinds, but the idea is you cannot rely on, you can Slack them or you can have a call with them, because that's a synchronous communication. Yes, you need to do that for those communication or project or topics that really require a lot of back and forth discussions. You need to schedule the synchronous one, but you must also assume a lot of things happen in the asynchronous way. So.
Interesting. And I've seen many leaders, for example, saying, well, I'm here for you. So whenever you need anything, you just let me know. And they don't schedule those coaching sessions, right? So what would you recommend for leaders? Like try to schedule or just leave the employee to decide when to meet? That's
Yeah, that is such a good question. I will give you one example that I will say we're in the middle of experimenting. One thing that's really important, not just because we work in the distributed fashion, but because of the pandemic, the mental stress for people, everyone, I mean, myself included, is an additional above and beyond how we normally feel the stress or the mental stress, right? So at OffSec, I have been saying for a long time is our mental fitness is really important, not just physical. You really have to make sure you have your mental fitness, your mental health, pay attention to that. You know, we talk about making sure you sleep enough, making sure, you know, you take time off, making sure you eat well, making sure you exercise, because all of those impact mental health, right? We say that. I even set examples where when I take PTO, I broadcast to the whole company because I want to set the example to say, hey, I take time off. You should all take time off whenever you need it because we have unlimited PTO. But I realize not everybody does that. Okay? Not
Yes.
everybody, and you tell them to take care of their mental health, but not everybody is able to do that, especially people who used to already have some mental stress before. And then with the pandemic, it's many times worse.
Yes.
So just by modeling it, just by telling them, just by saying, you should do that, it's okay, and do this. Look, I'm doing it. It's not enough. And I will say, I have come to realize it's not enough just to do the role model, just to continue to reiterate the message, just to remind people. I think as leaders, we need to do extra, okay? What does the extra mean? We are literally in the middle of trying to figure out. We want to do it our way that works with our employees. So one thing I also do as a part of running a distributed company is on a weekly basis, I have an office hour. This morning, every Thursday for 1 hour, we hop on Zoom. People can come and go anytime. It's not obligation. And so every time we get about a dozen people, we just chit chat. It's a way to create the virtual water cooler effect. Okay. We talk about hobbies, we talk about weather, we talked about some pets. I mean, all sorts of things. We're cooking. And last week, actually, I posted a question to the group that were there. And I said, you know, mental stress we all experience. And we are doing all these things in the company. But I feel it's not enough. What else should we do? So ask the employees. Right off the bat, people had ideas and saying, you know, I think we can do this. I think we can do that. Actually, the first suggestion was, I think we should just ask the employee, do a survey, ask people where they are with their mental stress, ask them to rank it anonymously, and then ask them to suggest, well, we can give a list of suggestions, ask them to rank which one they would like more. So examples we talked about, should we mandate PTO? Should we mandate certain things to force people to take time off? And we also have, for example, a buddy program that we set up, randomly pairing two people, okay? And then the idea is that you allow people to get to know each other more as people, right? So, and we rotate that every quarter. So when I get signed a buddy, and I actually set up a weekly one-on-one. So I talk to my buddy every week for half an hour. We chit chat. And we learn where we grew up, how our childhood was, our family, our hobby. So we really get to know each other, okay? And when I do that, I'm just another buddy. I'm not a CEO, right? And I have to come to really enjoy these talks, right? So through that, you know people, and then the employees will tell you what they like, what they value, what they don't. Well, when they don't, it means it doesn't work for them, right? So we are literally in the process saying, okay, we're gonna do a survey. We're gonna ask our employees what first of all, to know where they are so we know where people are at, and then ask them to rank and suggest what they would like us to do. And that way, whatever we come up with is really the OffSec way, right? It's not just taking someone else's and apply here, but we tailor it to something that works here. So I say, listen to your employees and ask them, and you will be surprised how much they will share with you. And sometimes, and you see that, you say, oh my God, it's so obvious. You know, I wish I thought about it, but that's the power of listening to your people.
Right. And it also happens that it's sometimes when you have this type of culture, which is not what people used to, right? Most of the companies in the past were not like that. We're very structured now. There are more companies like yours that are changing, that are being more flexible, especially now with COVID. But there are many employees that are still, I think that maybe the Gen Xers are more on that, but maybe you can tell me different, but are more structured still, not trusting when you say to speak up, they won't speak up, because in some companies, the speak up is just, yeah, speak up, but still, you know, we're still the same culture, and we haven't changed. I mean, we're telling you to speak up, but we're not gonna hear you. So there are many employees that are still kind of wary about that. Is that happening in your company too?
That's another really good question. I think that doesn't just apply to a distributed company, that applies everywhere. And I think when you're distributed, that challenge is exacerbated, right? So I think what's important is that you build vulnerability-based trust with your people. Okay? Right. But how do you do that?
Right. And, good question.
How do you do that, right? So I remembered, you know, I am finishing up my 2 years as CEO here at OffSec. And during the first 6 months, I was trying to figure out what would be my style as a CEO. Okay. I worked with some CEOs that I really admire and I copied their style. But then, you know, 6 months in, I realized I need to figure out what my style is. And I feel very lucky that our employees, and some of them were courageous enough that they were very open with me for what they liked, what they didn't like. Okay. And then some of them told me, Ning, you're not like a CEO. Talking to you is not like talking to a CEO. And in the beginning, I will tell you, I did not know how to take that. I didn't know if that was a compliment or that was like, I am not doing a good job, right? There was a saying to me that I was not like a CEO.
Right, because you have questions too, right? You're not perfect. You're also trying.
That's right.
That's also something very important and part of vulnerability, right? We're all vulnerable. It's not, oh, just the employees, or no.
That's right. That's right. So then, so they said, no, Ning, it's a good thing because talking to you is just like talking to another person, and keep it. So that really gave me the courage that I will say my style as a CEO is to be, number one, authentic, and number two, to be vulnerable. And both takes courage. Right. But in a very funny way, when you are courageous enough to be yourself and to be vulnerable, you actually can lead better. Why? Because you connect with people better. They see you as another human being. So another thing I do is that on a weekly basis, our executive team writes a summary that we share to the entire company in order to help people informed what's happening in the company. It's the same report I get. I don't get a different report. It's the same report we share with the entire company. But in that report, not only we talk about what has happened last week, what's coming up, what's delayed, what you feel bad, what you're worried about. The last section is being vulnerable.
Wow.
And I would write in that section without skipping a single week. Every week, I share something about my vulnerability. Sometimes it's actually about my personal life, such as I had a bad argument with my kids or with my husband. Sometimes it was about a decision I made at work, but I was not so sure that was the right way to do it. And I don't know if offended people. And I share those in the being vulnerable section every week in my weekly. Sometimes I share multiple. And then the employees tell me, Ning, I may not read all your bullets. I always read your being vulnerable section because by reading that, I feel you're a real person. I get to know you as a real person. By being vulnerable with our employees allows any leader to build trust with your employees. And I think having that trust is so fundamental to everything. And then if you are vulnerable and people give you feedback, and then you have to really act in a way you truly appreciate that. And like I said, I am a big believer that feedback is a gift. It's really a gift people gave you. I know sometimes when you hear a harsh feedback, it's hard to hear, but still that is even a better gift. So if you can encourage people and create this psychological safety in the work situation, people can speak their mind, give you feedback about either your performance or things they see in the company. It's incredible what that can generate. So that is how we do it. That's how I do it. Is I preach that being vulnerable is a good thing. Building trust based on vulnerability is the starting point. And I practice by sharing my vulnerability with the entire company every week on different things. And I encourage people to share. I encourage them to give feedback. And in the 2 years, it has worked marvelously.
Oh,
and
that's
I
amazing.
wonder why not more leaders do that, because it's so powerful, actually.
Well, that's a good question. So I was gonna ask you in regards to that. Like, where did you learn it? Like, maybe it's because you're a woman, and women have a different approach to leading companies. There are not many women CEOs, but you also have kids, right?
Right.
So it's possible, and you're managing a 200 employees company. So it's that part of that, or do you have a coach or someone or a book
Yeah.
that gave you this knowledge, or how can you say you got there?
That's a good question. I would say it's a combination. I would say, I grew up in China.
Mhm.
I studied physics, and then I made a transition into business via McKinsey. And that journey meant I was like almost at the top of my career as a scientist. And I go all the way from the beginning and then work my way up, right?
Wow.
So to do that, it takes a lot of confidence and also be willing to totally expose yourself, being vulnerable, right?
Courage again, right?
Because like you're doing all over again, right? So I think in that journey, I was so focused on learning. I wanted to go into business. I didn't know how. I'm willing to learn. I didn't go to business school. McKinsey was like a paid business school for me. I took those as opportunity for me to learn. And there I learned how your manager can give you feedback, and those feedback can be so valuable. It's like, whoa, I didn't even realize that's the perception I created by behaving certain way. So McKinsey was a very supportive environment, and I learned to take it that way. So it really, that was, I would say, the beginning of learning to take feedback, be vulnerable, and not lose confidence during that process, which is really key, right? Because if you lose your confidence, actually you can't perform very well. And I do think having kids is a very humbling experience, because the kids do not hide. They tell you exactly how they feel, right? So, you learn through that. And I think, I remember when I first started as CEO, the very first book I picked up is The 5 Dysfunction of a Team by Patrick Luciani, I think. And I read that book before, and I read it again. And it talks about this pyramid of the 5 elements, 5 dysfunctions, where you can turn around into 5 advantages. It starts with building vulnerability-based trust. And I said, wow, that is so good. I have seen executive teams that is dysfunctional because nobody wants to talk about the tough topic. But you've had too many tough topics you don't talk about, you can't talk about real meaty stuff later, right? So in personal relationship and in professional relationship, it works the same way. Humans work that way. So we actually worked on that. I did hire an executive coach for myself and for the executive team. And we worked through that, defining what kind of team we want, what kind of norm we want, and what is the behavior we want to have. And we, even to this day, we're almost 2 years, we continue to work with the coach, and we have the coach work with the whole company now, right? To really bring that way of working and being as part of the culture, part of the way we interact on the daily basis, right? So I think, like whether it's a quarterly, monthly, every other month, we literally have set aside time where the executive team with the coach, we do a working session and we prepare ahead of time. And so we have homework assignment. And then even during this 1.5 years working with the coach, our team has evolved where before feedback would be given, but it's anonymously. Now people gave feedback, not only is it open, it's in front of the whole team. And I love that. And there are feedback sometimes about me, and they are hard feedback where they say, Ning, you could do better because you didn't do this. It's hard to hear. But when people can say that in the open, in front of everyone, in front of me, that's trust, right? That's enough trust for people to feel that. And I'm so happy about that.
Right. And well, what I understood is that so you're having a coaching not only for you, but also for the employees. Is that correct?
Yes. So the coach that I hired, she first worked with me and our entire executive team for the first 6 months. And then the results were really good. So the next year, we had her work with the next level management, our directors and managers. So our next tier leadership. And then the next year, we have her work with the whole company. So we really did this in stages and taking the lessons learned and figure out how to apply more broadly.
That's an amazing transition because I've seen many companies just working on the executive side, right? But what about the middle leaders, which are the ones that probably they are taking the a leadership position for the first time, and it's so hard for them. And imagine if they are doing it for the first time and online, it's even more difficult.
That's right. So the other thing we do in addition to the executive coaching is that we use LinkedIn. LinkedIn Learning has a lot of good videos, and then our leaders will curate. So say these 6 videos will teach you how to be more strategic, or how to be a first-time manager, or how to do better time management. So we would put in time to curate those and then share that with the employee. And in addition, inside our company, we have fireside chat on a regular basis over Zoom. And it's on topics that we basically promote learning, okay? So we had a session on time management where people from different parts of the company, myself, our CFO, and other people, we all came and we just share what we do for time management. And everybody has a different technique. And then the employee can see, oh, Ning does this, but our CFO does this, our head of engineering does this, and our HR director does this. And it's not to say there's only one way, because people are different and it's a different thing work for different one, right? And then so you bring real people sharing their real experience, and those are really good sort of lessons to share. And then the other thing that I recently started to do is that, we're scaling. But how do you get people to scale emotionally? Because, it's one thing, you have a small team and everybody what they're doing. And then when your team grows and company grows, it's not possible everything and everyone's task anymore. And it's hard to let go. It's really hard to let go. And you used to be able to do that yourself. And now you have to delegate, and you have to feel comfortable delegating, and you have to make sure the quality is still there. And how do you just emotionally feel okay? And I will say, I actually don't know what to do, right? So one thing I thought about, and then we experiment, and I'm big on piloting things. And I said, through the years and my network, I know some very inspirational people, especially women leaders and people of diversity background. I said, I wonder if I would do, using my office hour as a 1 hour, I would on a monthly basis bring some of these leaders. I would just interview them. Like here, you're interviewing me, okay? I would just interview them. We record it. And I ask people to ask questions, and I prepare a list of questions ahead of time. And then just to see, people don't have to hear what I say. They can hear what other people say, what their journey was, how they went from an individual contributor to the first-time manager, how they went from manager to director to VP, and now leading a company. And how did they go through the struggle, balancing having kids and family, and also pursuing a career. So I've done 3 of those. 2 are women, and one is an African-American man, very accomplished, and my manager from my McKinsey days. Our people love it. Love it. They say, they really like these special guests, they call it special guest series. So I have it lined up, for another 3 or 4. And I really tap into my network. I say, I want to bring you inspirational leaders to share your journey, to inspire our people. So we try different things, and then we see which one works. Maybe one works better for one type of people, one works better for the other type of people. But the big thing I do is I get some ideas and we try.
It's interesting what you're talking about, because I'm noticing more and more companies not relying anymore on formal training from external trainers, but now it's like there's more peer-to-peer coaching, more training from the CEO or from the supervisors, or like you're saying, inviting people from different companies to talk. Like training has changed a lot. Is that right? Or you still keep the formal training, or you have reduced it a lot, or how that works? Is that a combination?
I think this is very much tied to how OffSec does the training, right? We train people in cybersecurity. But the most important thing we try to develop in that person is the mindset. Because when you do a cybersecurity job, every situation is different. It's not like you keep on doing the same thing over and over again, because you never know what kind of a vulnerability you'll be faced. You never know what the attacker will do to you. And the situation is very different. So you have to be able to look at the situation and then be able to figure out where you're going to start. And if you get stuck, how do you know you're stuck and not waste too much time and get yourself out of it and try a different path? That's a mindset. That's a mindset that we have to develop. And how do you train people for mindset? It's really, really hard. So the way we do it is that we say, we will train you for mindset by giving you real world labs. And you're going to do it hands-on. And you are going to get stuck. Because you know what? When you do a real job, you will get stuck. But then you will learn by struggling through. When you get stuck, what you do. And then when you do it the first time, maybe it's not so natural. When you do it the 3rd time, it will be like, oh, Okay, I don't have enough time. I'm stuck. So that means that this is not a good way to go. Let me come back and try a different path, right? It becomes automatic. That requires hands-on training for you to really get it. If you just hear the theory, you don't really get it. You have to do it. In fact, we as kids, that's exactly how we learned. But as
Exactly.
adults, we somehow don't think we need to learn it hands-on. We think we can just read books and we can learn. Sometimes you need the theory, but you really have to do hands-on. So I think when it comes to training, especially for these quote unquote soft skills, how to be a better leader, how to be a better manager, how do you have a conversation you can really get the person to open up and talk. These are all soft skills, right? You hear the theory. If you don't practice, you do not know. But you don't know how to practice if people don't give you real world examples. So when you invite, I think, when you invite the practitioners, the real leaders, the real managers who share with you the tips they learned, the mistakes they made, and lessons they learned, because then you'll say, oh my God, I'm going through exactly that. And that's what they did. I'm going to try that myself and see if it works for me. So in a way, I think by inviting real leaders or real people to share, it's providing this hands-on way so that you know what to try.
Amazing. Oh, I would stay talking to you for hours. Thank you very much, Nick, for this wonderful information. I think CEOs, leaders in general will appreciate this very much. Also, there's your playbook that you have uploaded online. So I will share that too with the readers and the ones that look at this video. So thank you very much. Is there any last tip that you'd like to say before we end this conversation?
The only last thing I want to say is that as a leader, as a CEO in particular, and yes, you think about project strategy, vision, all of those things. The most important thing, I know it may sound cliche, but I really believe in it. The most important thing is the happiness of your people. And if you focus on that and then see anything that's causing them not to be as happy as you can make them be, everything else will fall into places.
Yeah, let's toast to our friend Tony Shea that was the
Yes,
first
isn't that?
advocate on happiness. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
thank you very much, Ning. It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It was great talking to you.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Luciana.